Hello, Tom McGuire. I just want to do a quick book review on the book From Strength to Strength, Finding Success, Happiness and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Life by Arthur C. Brooks. So I'm going to talk to you about why I feel this book is kind of aimed a little bit towards maybe more successful people, perhaps people who are a bit further along on their personal development journey. And I have discussed in the past personal development books that I feel are this way inclined. I'm going to tell you about that in this review. I'm also going to tell you why that's not necessarily such a bad thing, because you'd be forgiven for thinking that's not necessarily ideal, that it's a bit elitist potentially, but I'm not necessarily so sure about that. I think we can learn from that, and I will tell you why. And I'm going to tell you who specifically I'd recommend this book to, because there are a certain type of person who I might recommend this book to more than others. So I will also be giving you what my key takeaways are as well. So if you don't listen to the rest of it, just fast forward to that. That's absolutely fine. It just gives you a bit of an idea without reading the book, the sort of lessons that you can take away. And I think, I always say on this channel, this is personal development. It's about book reviews. But I think most books will at least give you something that you can kind of take away, implement in your life, which will hopefully help you improve, help you develop, help you get to where you want to be and to become the person you want to be. So there are a few things in this book that are worth following, I would suggest. I like this idea that's kind of based on ancient Eastern sort of thinking of shedding our possessions as we get older. In the West, we're very much kind of almost brainwashed in a way by capitalism and advertising to sort of buy and kind of consume as much as possible and hold on to as many things as possible. And of course, it is an amazing part of our society, isn't it, that we have laws and things to protect property. You hear Jordan Peterson talk about this stuff. It's really important that people can't just come along and take things from us. And we have things, and we're able to have things that we can use as tools to kind of improve our lives, make things more comfortable, make things more safe. And that's a good thing. But in a way, we kind of get a bit too obsessed with accumulating stuff. And I think it's really healthy to throw a lot of stuff out that we don't necessarily need. And minimalism is a growing kind of trend, and it's definitely a powerful one that's worth thinking about. I've known a lot of people as they've got older just decide to throw stuff away because it's just been in their attic for years and years. And whilst there might be some kind of sentimental value there in their imagination, when they come to actually get rid of it, they realise they don't miss it. They realise it is just clutter. And it's there in the background, isn't it? And it kind of causes you a certain amount of subconscious stress. A lot of people who really hold on to stuff, you get people who are hoarders. I've worked with hoarders before in the past. And, it's a mental illness. It comes from this place of lack and kind of need to have things. And it isn't healthy. So, this idea, this Eastern idea of thinking, kind of getting rid of things, becoming more spiritual is kind of what this book is based on, and I like that. I think that's really worthwhile. So a quote from the author: "As we age, we shouldn't accumulate more to represent ourselves, but rather strip things away to find our true selves." I think that's really valuable. I think if you take nothing else away from this book, that's worth thinking about and kind of implementing to a certain extent. You don't have to take it to an extreme, but just to think about it, meditate on it a little bit, and just think about what part of your life you can kind of get rid of stuff that you've been holding on to. And just think about becoming a deeper, happier, better person. So this idea of kind of mindful living and living in the present really isn't new. We know that there are loads of books out there, loads of personal development books on living in the present and mindfulness. And it's really, really useful information to be reminded of. I've said that in a recent personal development book review. I can't remember which one it was exactly, but a lot of these books repeat some of the stuff we've heard and read before, but actually it doesn't hurt to go over it again. You can't expect from reading one or two books for these ideas to necessarily kind of cement themselves and crystallize within you. You kind of have to go over things a few times. You kind of have to hear them a few times from a few different people in different contexts to sort of get it to drive home and to start implementing it in your life. So it's good to hear that again in this book, I think. One thing I will say about this book is that some of the ways he presents these ideas aren't necessarily that original. I think he could have been a bit more original and creative in the way he presents them and some of the stories that he tells, but I don't think that necessarily detracts too much from the book. You can kind of see that for yourselves if you listen to or read the book. Mindfulness for me has always been really important. I try to slow myself down throughout the day, and I try to kind of appreciate where I am in the moment, whether I'm sat at my computer doing work, or I'm just taking a breath of fresh air, I'm going for a walk, or whatever it is, just looking out the window whilst making a cup of tea and just kind of thinking to yourself, what's going on that's nice, can I see the leaves on the trees and the wind blowing, or the rain or the sun, whatever it is. It sounds a bit hippie, but it can really kind of ground you and just remind you of how kind of fortunate you are. And then that leads on to feeling grateful, and then we know how powerful gratitude is as well. So it's almost like it almost kind of links and works really well together. He talks very much about the idea of being interconnected as well, which I think is really important, and how we become more connected to people the more vulnerable we are prepared to be with people. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. You often find the closest friendship groups are the ones who can be the most vulnerable with each other. I can be a bit guilty sometimes of putting up a defense and kind of having this successful kind of hard image in front of people sometimes, when really I should just kind of let go and say, actually, I'm struggling with this, or I'm struggling with that. Being vulnerable is really powerful. Brené Brown talks a lot about that. This book is actually talking about the inevitability of our cognitive mental decline as we age. I'm not sure exactly how well backed up the research is necessarily, but he kind of suggests that after sort of 40, I think it might be 50 years old perhaps, or even 40, we start to lose our fluid intelligence. So he kind of suggests, I might get this wrong now, but I'm going to try and get it right. He kind of suggests that fluid intelligence is that ability to kind of be creative, forward-thinking, thinking on the spot, the sort of thing that young entrepreneurial types in Silicon Valley kind of have by the bucket load, And as you get older, you kind of tend to lose that, which I think there's probably a fair bit of evidence to suggest there is truth in that. And he's kind of saying that actually we develop a different type of intelligence, a different type of interest, and we're better off kind of letting go of those kind of hard, fast, money-oriented, success-oriented goals, and accepting that we're maybe not as kind of cutting edge as we used to be, and actually there's more to achieve as we get older. We can be better parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, members of our local community. We can do more meaningful things. We may not be, like I say, as kind of potentially not as innovative maybe, although some people would argue with me about that as they've got older potentially, but most of us probably won't be. But what we can do is kind of be a little bit more purpose driven and kind of realize that actually we've had certain successes, we've had certain material things, and actually they're not that important in the end. What's important is how we're remembered as a person, how kind we are, how giving we are, how generous we are, and how loving we are. And I think that kind of brings me on to what I said at the beginning about why this book is kind of a bit more recommended for people further on in their personal development journey. I don't think it's necessarily that it's elitist. I think it might be that as people are more successful and more experienced as they go on through their life journey, they tend to realise that actually money, whether they've achieved it or not, isn't as desperately as important as they used to think it was. Actually, the things they're going to be remembered for are how good a parent they were, how kind a friend they were, how much effort they've put into relationships. And it all sounds a bit cheesy to a certain extent, but there is a lot of truth in that. And I think that's why this book is good for people who are at the beginning of their personal development journey as well, because I think you would do well as a young person, 20s, 30s, 40s, what have you, to realise now that actually there are more important things. By all means, work hard to make money, to be secure with your family and all of those things, to achieve the things you want to achieve, but realise at the same time that it isn't worth selling your soul for that. It isn't worth getting to your deathbed and realising that you weren't there for the people that you cared about and who actually cared about you at one point. Probably don't anymore because you've just been so cold towards them. So learn that lesson early on in life, and I think there is a place for this type of book in that respect. It's really, really important. So who I would recommend this book to are the sort of people who maybe have got a little bit lost on their journey. They're getting a bit too focused maybe on their sort of money goals potentially. And I think it doesn't hurt just to remind yourself that actually there's more to life. By all means, go for that hard, fast win and push yourself and strive and all of those things. But actually realise early, don't realise too late what's important in life. And I think that book's really important for that. So thank you very much. As usual, keep liking and subscribing. I will be back again very soon. Cheers.